Guys, deluded Guna, good evening, happy Friday, folks. I know you've all got in from work, college, or wherever you've had to do with the day and the week. But it's Friday, Arsenal tomorrow. They're either going to make us extremely happy or stress us out. Whatever club you support, that's probably the same for you. So kick back, relax, let Kante get through the Q&As. So yeah, let's get into it. Thank you for all the questions, of course, man. Like I said, been some quality questions. If I've missed you out, forgive me. Yeah, man, forgive me. Sunday we do this again. Get in the comments and ask them questions. So let's crack on. Printed them off. I don't think you saw the glare is not being kind, but yeah, it's there. So let's crack on. Ibrahim, is 18 too late to get signed and the best way to get signed? He's obviously talking about professional football. Bro, the game's a stitch up. You're not too late to make it if you're talking about yourself or your friends. You're not too late at 18 to make it. Clubs are looking at grassroots and non-league level and grassroots and non-league and foundation tournaments and all different other ways, schemes and things. So if you're of a decent ability or you believe you are, try and find them schemes or teams that have a reputation in your sort of borough. Like if you're from South, Dulwich Hamlet, they're a very good semi-pro side. Try and get yourself at these sort of clubs because they're more likely to get seen. This is where scouts think about it. It's all about context. Scouts hear things like, oh, have you watched Dulwich Hamlet play? Have you watched this team down Hackney Marshes? They've got a good crop of players, blah, blah, blah. That's how you know. That's how you get seen. The scout goes and sees you're there. It's not all about talent. It's about the facility and being in the front of a scout's eye. I and a lot of my friends and people I know haven't made it for this very reason. And another, it helps if you have a contact in the game. Like I'm not saying the likes of Darnell Furlong, Trent Arnold, Ben Gibson, who else? Kyle Walker-Peters. I'm not saying these players weren't good enough to make it without being a professional footballer. I mean, without on ability basis. But it does help if you go and do your research. They've got family that have played the game or got some sort of connection in the game. So them sort of things help. But you're not too late, bro. So if it's you, keep cracking on, man. Just keep cracking on. Obviously, I gave you this advice, so let me be your agent. But yeah, I'm cracking on. Bilal Abdullah, I hope I've said your name correctly, bro. I'm poor with names. Thoughts on Koscielny, Coughlin, Welbs back in training? Happy, man. I mean, you want to see all your first team players back in training. You don't really want to see no injuries. But I wasn't sold on Welbs. You can ask my friend Eman. I was distraught when we signed Danny Welbeck. But since he signed for us, I see what he brings to the table. Don't get me wrong. In front of goal, he needs to pattern. But he's a very good player, to be honest with you. Coughlin, Kokelele, and everybody else. You want to see everybody in training. So in short, I'm happy, bro. Next. Camille Ainley, forgive me, poor attempt, forgive me. Best centre half in the world. Now that's a debatable one, man, because I don't think there's really one outstanding one. At least there's not one that comes to my mind. If you was to give me a checkbook and say you can have anyone you want, it might divide opinions, but I'd say Varane. I don't believe he's necessarily the best ability-wise, but I'd say Varane. If it was based on my sort of preference for a centre-half, I like the centre-halves alongside the Bonucci types. I know AC Milan are poor, or Cellini, or a couple years ago, Godin, and players like that, to be honest with you. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question. Next, Jacob Durant, at Jacob Durant. Dark horses for the World Cup. Portugal, because they've shown what they did in the Euros, and I believe they've got a good crop of players coming through. Obviously, the next 18 months is less than a year is very quick, so you won't really see the next generation. Maybe the next World Cup or the next Euros, you'll see the fruition of their generation. But I believe they're slept on like they were in the Euros. If you want to, I know Lionel Messi plays for them ultimately, so you can't really say this, but Argentina, I mean, you look at it, they almost didn't qualify. I saw some stat on Twitter, I don't know if it's true, guys, so forgive me if I'm wrong, but Messi's been the only scorer in a competitive game in qualifying. That's some nonsense if that's true, or something along them lines. That's some nonsense. They just missed out. And if you remember, Brazil almost missed out in 2002. And look how that went out for us, how that worked out for us. So you never know, to be honest. And it's Messi. You like to think it's Messi's last major competition in his peak of his prime, in his powers. I'm not saying he's not going to be good at 30. Well, he's 30, but you know what I mean. Them sort of ages when Dubai comes. But he's in the peak of his powers. Messi, his rival. Then I know they don't look at each other as rivals, but Ronaldo's accomplished something for his country. Messi, you know. So yeah, and he looks like he's on stuff this year. He looks like he's never lost his mojo, but he looks like he's got a point to prove. So you never know. Obviously, if Brazil don't win it, I wouldn't mind Messi getting it and play and clubs like that, countries like that. So yeah, man, let's crack on. Oh, you got another question. Do you like Emirates facilities? They're great, but is the atmosphere as bad as the media say? Yes and no. I'd say no, because come on now, if you believe the media, when if anything, you really literally think it's a museum. The atmosphere could be better. Don't get me wrong, it buzzes sometimes. It gets rocking when it's all going well. I like the facilities, like you said, they're amazing. I'm not going to sit here and talk about how good Arsenal's facilities are. They make a big case of that, telling us about the class and stuff. And I say yes, because sometimes you go to the Emirates and you'll chant, and I'm not lying. Those of you that have been to the Emirates know what I'm talking about. Some people will look at you like you're crazy. Like, if you start chanting or chanting too loud, some will look at you like you're crazy. And don't get me wrong, Highbury to a degree was the same. It wasn't exactly, it's painted with rose tints. And the Highbury wasn't exactly like a madness, but it was better than this. So yeah, hope that answers your question. So maybe before I carry on, maybe that's just something to do with Arsenal fans. Maybe that's just how Arsenal fans are built. But I don't know, guys. But yeah, next question. At Expert Guna, what's your all-time Arsenal AFC 11 that you've seen in your lifetime? That's a mad one, bro. My 20s. Uh, Jens Lehmann. I want to say Seaman. Wait, Jens Lehmann, Tony Adams. Wait, Jens Lehmann in goal. Tony Adams centre half. Sol Campbell centre half. Lauren right back. Ashley Cole left back. 4-4-2. Alexis Sanchez on the right. Perez on the left. Cesc Fabregas and Vieira in the middle. I know they couldn't play together in real life, but yeah. Thierry Henry. Dennis Bergkamp. Oh, man. There's a couple I'd like to... On the subs bench, Arshavin on the subs bench. First sub. Lundberg first sub. Ozil on the subs bench. Yeah, man, that's my 11. That put me on the spot. That was a good question. That was a very good one. I hope I've even said 11 players there. So yeah, man, that was a good question. Ooh, I'd like to bring in Keon, you know. Let me crack on. That was a good question, expat, man. Shout out to you. At Show Rizzy, shout out to him. If Ozil/Alexis leave in January, where do you see Arsenal finishing? If we play like how we did against Chelsea, in the draw, I know it's only one game, but you'd like to think top four. Reality is we have gotten top. I know it's got more competitive because sides have ultimately got better players, but we have got top four with lesser side. It's about the mentality. It's about galvanizing. If players can do that, just away from Arsenal, if anyone can do that, you stand half a chance. Of course, it's a big blow losing them two. They ultimately are our best players. Alexis, 30 goals, 15 assists, difference maker. Ozil somewhat the final cog in the engine that makes the thing tick and stuff. So you could argue yes, you could argue no. Personally, I would think the worst. But I would say no, but on the basis that these players have to be sensible enough to know our colleagues are, there's a risk of them not being here at the end of the season purely on the basis that they could be sold because of their contracts. We know we're going to be here at least till season ends, so let's crack on and have the best season we can. The reality is life goes on. It's not the Alexis and Ozil show. I know it is at the moment, sadly, with this club, and you saw my vids and I spoke about this nonsense, how it should stop, in how we should have really got some resolution in July. But yeah, it's the club doesn't revolve around them. Whether even if they stay or go, the club will be here. The club will still be here. There's been greater men, Thierry Henry. The club is still, he's left. The club is still going on. So yeah, whatever degree, whatever way we go, and whatever degree they decide, I really hope that there's an end to it, because it does frustrate me, this prima donna stuff. It's not even necessarily it's everybody. It's the players. It's the club. It's just a soap drama for you. You don't support Arsenal, so it's a madness. But yeah, man, hope that answers your question. To be honest. At Patrick Hall, I don't think I said your last name right, my guy, but shout out to you. Apologies. Europa League or top four? Top four, man. Come on now. Like, I'm not here to dish Europa League. You know my feelings on Europa League. If we won Europa League, I'll be the first to gas it with you and really live up to the name Delu Diguna. But come on now, man. Europa League's a dead thing. Like, you get there for failing. Like, I'm not really on it. If you were to give me top four, back in top four, or Europa League, I'm taking top four. Obviously, I'd like both, but top four if that answers your question. At Jaden Sancho, good name. Best way to get signed and what age is too late? Similar question to at the beginning. There's not really a best age. Sadly, you could argue the better, the quicker, the earlier you get signed, the better. I don't necessarily agree, but I do agree. I know I'm sitting on the fence there. I agree because the quicker you're in there, obviously they can train you to a certain way. When you've been there a certain time, you get more of allowed and it's a stitch up and you can see what's needed. I say no because the more you're in there, the earlier you're in there, you can become a robot. I've seen it, and when you get released, it can be a bit gazy. So yeah, the earlier the better on the basis of what I see and what typically happens in professional football. I say the earlier the better. And what age is too late? There's not really an age too late. But I say the older you get, the more realistic, or not realistic, or the harder it gets. I mean, if you're 16, you really have to be someone good, because that's the age clubs are deciding who's going to get scholars and ultimately make the first proper push to being a professional footballer. So if your level's like that within the academy, which some are being picked up from non-league, like I said, fair play. If you're 12, you got more of a chance. But again, they're looking for certain things. At the end of the day, some players that go on trials are levels, but they're looking for better. And like I said, it's stitch up. If someone's of bog standard, but their dad knows such and such, and their uncle's this coach and blah, 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 it happens. It happens. So yeah, man, if it's a black and white world, the earlier the better, sadly. So I hope that answers your question. Oh, you got a second question. Do you think Jadon Sancho if he had a good season at Dortmund, would get a World Cup space. Now that all depends. I mean, you look at it; they've paid around 8 million if we believe reports. They've given him number 7. They were angry he was going to the under-17s World Cup. They've made a big investment. So if he was to come back, play, get some goals, bag some assists, then you could say you could say why not, because Theo went and he didn't do anything, and he really didn't play in a competitive game. So you never know. But on the basis that if he was to ask me, I'd say no. It's probably a bit too early. You want to let guys. He's already getting the hype for purely making the move. He had a lot of hype surrounding his name at City, anyways. A lot of hype surrounding the move. If he was to go to the World Cup again, you see with English players, the first to hype them up to let them fall. Just let him. It's a good move actually in Germany. Kind of quiet. I mean, he'll still be speculated. People watch his every move, but it's a quiet. It's in the background. He can do his thing. He's got a good home in Dortmund, a club that believe in him, that have made a good investment in him. So he's going to get chances. So I would say, I mean, if you look at Theo's case, then yeah. But if you were to ask me, I'd say out of 100, 60% no. To be honest with you. So I hope that answers your question. I don't think I've got any other questions here, guys. So like I said, get in the comments with your other questions. Thank you for sticking with me for this Friday evening. It's your Q&A. Deluded Guna, your host with the most. I'm signing out. Thank you very much for watching. Of course, I love you guys. Like I said, get in the comments with your questions. And if I've forgotten them, forgive me. Hit that like button, subscribe.